Hey everyone tuning in. This is the first edition of our ENSentral Builder Spotlight. I'm here with Sean Murray, creator of Dot Photos, and I'm looking forward to finding out more about this project and who Sean is. Sean, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
All right, we'll take a look at some of the questions we've got for you. So why don't we get started? First, who is Sean for anyone who hasn't been following you, in real life? What's your background, jobs, hobbies? Who are you?
Sure. Yeah, all good questions. So I am the founder and owner of a small alternative finance media company called Debanked. Oftentimes when people hear the term debanked or alternative finance, they assume crypto, but it's actually more about alternative lending. That's not really crypto related at all. In fact, I feel like the crypto world would probably consider the content that we have to be almost traditional finance, but it's really about non-bank lending, fintech, things of that nature. I've been in that business for about 12 years or so. My background is in alternative finance, in alternative lending, non-crypto related stuff. And we also do conferences and events. So people who work in like small business lending, alternative finance, we do anywhere from 2 to 4 events per year, conferences like New York, Miami, and so forth. So that's what I do per day. I do have some background in the crypto space, though, just because I talk about other types of alternative finance doesn't mean I don't know about crypto. I got into crypto, I guess, really around 2014 or so. I started hearing about it in Bitcoin in 2013. Eventually, I couldn't ignore it anymore. In 2014, I guess, bought some Bitcoin. I started mining some Bitcoin. I ran a Bitcoin node back in the day. There was something called the Bitcoin Center. I live in New York. I'm, been in New York my whole life, born and raised. And there was something called the Bitcoin Center in the financial district. And it was an actual place you could go and meet other people interested in Bitcoin. It was open bar, I think twice a month or once a month. And I would go and I'd meet other people, and you could actually trade Bitcoin with people there. And so I learned so much about Bitcoin at that time. Went to a lot of different Bitcoin conferences. I've always been interested in Bitcoin from a payments perspective. A lot of people kind of assume that when I got into Bitcoin early, it must mean that I invested in Bitcoin. I never thought about investing in it, like holding it and hoping it goes up. I was always interested in the non-bank payment aspect of Bitcoin, and that's what really drew me into crypto. And so I've been following all the developments in crypto ever since, never as an investor per se, but more of the use case of all the technology. Obviously got into Ethereum, and here I am all these years later, I guess 8 years later since I got into it, talking about Dot Photos and all that other stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned Bitcoin Center. I'd love to kind of hear more about that. Is that something is that still a thing today? Like, is that something, still going on?
Yeah, it's funny. I get that question a lot. It's like Bitcoin is considered like almost like old fashioned in the olden days, and like something that people's parents grew up with type of thing. And it started to become that way already in like 2017, 2018, where Bitcoin was old, which it is kind of old. I mean, Bitcoin came out 2009 or so?
Right.
Bitcoin is obviously still around, and I think that it still has utility, but really as a non-bank method of payment. So anytime I've had Bitcoin, I've used it for something. I've used it to book a hotel room. I've used it to buy a new computer monitor. Even at one point, Debanked even had a contract. There was a company that was advertising on our website, and they were paying us in Bitcoin. And it was priced in Bitcoin. It wasn't priced in dollars. We priced it in Bitcoin. And it was just about, that was the payment mechanism that we decided to use. So yeah, of course, Bitcoin is still around. I just don't know how much depth Bitcoin has, beyond really payments, in my personal opinion.
No, I completely agree with you on that. I'm sure there's plenty of people who don't, but I think for the most part, that's kind of how it's been viewed today. With more of a shift towards Ethereum and other options with that. I did have one more question on that. So you mentioned that the bank is more like traditional. Is there any sort of connection to crypto at all there? I mean, I know you just said that you took payments in crypto at one point, but is there anything that you guys do in the crypto world currently? is there any conferences you host for anything? Is that something you're looking to get into?
That is a very good question. We did have some crypto content on there going all the way back to 2014. And our readership really was only interested in it at the time that crypto prices were surging, because they wanted to know, hey, can I get rich? Can I get rich on this if I buy it? Right. But the technology aspect, believe it or not, did not see that much interest in. And so I've kind of taken a lot of the crypto content off of that site, and I moved it on to just another site. I don't know how far it'll be developed. I did host a crypto happy hour. I don't know if you're familiar with this, but for the ENS 10K club, back when the digits were minting out, back in the day. What was this? Back in like May? Not even.
Feels like 10 years ago now.
It was like 10 years ago. I ended up hosting a free open bar in Midtown Manhattan for anyone who had a 3 or 4 digit .eth.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, we got a pretty good sizable crowd to come. We got like a little over 100 people at that event. No way. Yeah, so I do have an interest in doing conferences in this whole space, but we'll see what happens there.
Well, I'm sure as it continues to grow, you'll definitely, find some options there, especially with your background. But, off of that, like, how did you get into ENS specifically? Was that, it doesn't sound like that was one of your first steps, obviously, into Web3. What kind of took you that route?
So I got my first ENS name in the fall of 2021. So I guess kind of late in some regards, because I've been in the crypto world for a long time.
About the same time I did as well.
About the same time? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think that's when a lot of people really started to get into it. I mean, even though ENS has been around for what, like five years or so?
About 5 years, yeah.
About 5 years. I think a lot of people have only gone in the last 12 months. Many in the last 6 months or so. And I think it was a matter of awareness. I just hadn't heard of it. But I recognized the value that it offered, and that was, I'm someone that's been using crypto since 2014, right? So I consider myself a crypto native. And the worst part about the crypto experience for me is transferring money to a long wallet address, right? It's the copying and pasting of a long, gigantic string and praying that you didn't copy it wrong or paste it wrong, or you didn't forget a digit or a letter or whatever. And then hoping when you click send, it's actually going to go to the place that you want. And when you have all those characters, it's just like, you just never know. And so the whole idea of like, hey, you can shorten your wallet address to this little name, put .eth at the end of it. I was like, oh, that would be way better.
Right.
You know what I mean? A lot less stressful. And so that was kind of my introduction to ENS.
I've got a question off of that. What was the first ENS that you registered? Do you remember it? What was it? Do you still have it?
So there is a well-known story kind of around it, and that is the first one I ever tried to register was debanked.eth. Naturally, because that's the name of our company, been around since 2010. We actually have a trademark on it. It's a registered trademark, debanked. And I went to register it, and it said it was taken. And I was like, what? Who took this name? This is unbelievable. How do they let people do this? That's probably the normal reaction that any normal person would have, right? If you're like a business owner, that's going to be your first reaction. Especially
with a trademark as well. Right?
Especially a trademark, right? I was like, oh, this is unbelievable. But at the same time, I was like, I really, really, feel like the value would be there. I do need to use one of these things, but I cooled off on it for like 10 days after that experience of my name being taken. And then when I came back, I said, all right, I'm just going to be SeanMurray.eth. So I registered SeanMurray.eth. And if I'm not mistaken, I probably registered it for like 20 years.
Really? Well, that's awesome. That's a cool story. I'd love to kind of jump into a little bit more, on the ENS side of things. Things have obviously been, changing at a rapid pace in this space. Did you expect ENS to get the attention it has today when you first registered your first name? Is it taking longer? Is it quicker?
I don't think that I had any particular expectation for ENS as an ecosystem or a universe outside of the original utility it offered myself, because I got into it as a way to transfer crypto in a way that was stress-free, right? So I wasn't thinking about like, oh, will this be a big community? will it be
Right.
adopted? For me, it was about the utility was there for me, and it didn't matter if anyone else in the entire universe used it, right? If everyone stopped using ENS today, I would still use mine. And I think that's actually the best proof that this has utility, because it's not actually reliant on the community or on all this other stuff. It's that there's an underlying utility that makes using crypto easier for the average person. I would use it if I was the only one using it. And so I don't know that I had any expectations in the beginning. Obviously, I've learned so much more since, and I've expanded my views on what ENS can do and what Web3 is, that I feel like it has grown. Well, while it has grown, the interest has grown considerably over the last year or so, that there's still a much longer way to go.
Mm-hmm. So there was no dot photos in your mind when you first, clicked that register button, I'm guessing.
Did not cross my mind even for a second.
No. Well, now that you're here, now that you've kind of experienced it and see how everything's going, what do you see as like the biggest potential use case for ENS in the future? Are you thinking it's going to reach a point where it's like government IDs? Is it just something kind of a fad for wallets? Is it social networks? How do you kind of see it playing out?
Yeah, I have my own view on that. I don't know that it'll ever get to government ID. I think some people are a little bit too idealistic as to how broadly ENS will be used. I don't know that the government is going to use it. Definitely not the United States government.
Right.
I also stopped calling them ENS domains, and I've since started calling them ENS names, because I feel like the best use for them at present is as a cross-platform username, where I don't have to be one name on Twitter, one name on Facebook, one name on Instagram, one name on, whatever. The idea that I can have this name and it can be used across platforms, and I could just essentially connect my wallet and I'm the same person everywhere. And so I think as a username, cross-platform username, that's the best use case of ENS right now.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I'll be interested to see if it takes any shape in like the gaming side of things, kind of see if there's any sort of projects, NFT, or, still in the previous Web 2, Web 1 side of things that can find a way to kind of integrate it, and maybe signing in with Ethereum and ENS as a whole. So it'll definitely be, kind of interesting to see where that lands in the next few years, how that takes shape.
Yeah, the whole gaming thing, if you go, I sometimes I look back at my old tweets just to see what I was thinking. And I was talking about Ethereum and gaming back in 2017. And it's just,
that's early.
It was early. And a lot of people just wrote it off as something that was a fantasy. And it's now happening. So I think I think gaming and the blockchain are going to be permanently interlinked. I don't know when it's going to become official. But I think the idea of using a standalone game where the items you get in the game are not in the blockchain is going to be, it's going to be seen as old fashioned. Of course, all your items should be on the blockchain.
Right. Well, even for instance, like you look at, user ID or username on different, games, like why is that the case? Like, why can't you, use these in an exchange and build up value for them and sell them off and find people who are interested in subdomains? Like there's so much potential in this space, and it'll be interesting to see, exactly what changes in the next few years. Obviously, you were plenty early on it, so I might need to get your opinion on the next 3 years, what things are looking like. So I can go ahead and start buying up what you're saying.
Well, I can be selective with what I was thinking. Every now and then I see tweets where I was completely wrong, and I'm like, I'll just pretend I didn't write that stuff.
Well, I'll make sure to scroll past that.
Sure.
But with that being said, is there any project, already out or being built in the ENS space that you kind of have your eye on right now? Is there any, team looking to create something that you think could be, pretty special?
Yeah. There's a few. I think that there could be a lot more. I do think that the ENS marketplaces are a good start. ENS Vision and Domain Plug. It's awesome that we have those. It's definitely helping to increase interest in buying names and increasing sales that ENS wasn't able to do on their own. One project in particular is, it's kind of small, but it's got a really nice organic growth. It's called B Card. and it's basically like exchanging business cards on the blockchain. And there's a little bit more to it than that, in that you're basically recreating a follow system on the blockchain. Because when we talk about how can you do social media on the blockchain, how can you do followers, how can you do all that stuff, the problem is you have to eliminate the use of a centralized database like Facebook, Instagram. They store all your followers in their database, and they control whether or not you have access to them. But B-Card, by exchanging business cards with each other, you can essentially establish followers or following or a relationship or connection, and then you can use that connection and create your own front end kind of social network. So B-Card.
Yeah, I think we're going to have the founder of that hopefully, on this space in the next couple weeks. I think it's 008.eth, right?
He's a smart guy.
Yeah, I haven't talked to him yet, but we talked to kind of somebody on the team, pushing forward with that, and I think we're going to have something set up for it. So if you're listening to this, check back in a couple of weeks to find out more about it. But great, so let's kind of hear more about you as the builder. The project.photos, what inspired you to build it? What is the goal of it? How do you see it being used in the future? Let's hear more about it. Sure.
I feel like I should just start off by telling you, what is my experience with building that type of platform. So, I built Debanked, and I built our media and our conference business, but those aren't really technical projects. Yes, I maintain things like websites and servers and all that. But it's not really development. ETH.photos is a little bit more, development oriented. I do have a sort of a self-taught coding background, so I can write adequately in a few different languages. I feel like I'm a little weak in JavaScript, but picking it up a lot because you have to. And the inspiration for .photos, or I guess really the idea for .photos, it came from two different things. One is I had been to a couple meetups in which people put .eth on their name badge. So, I would put my digits, 3531.eth. So I like to rep my digits on my Twitter and everything. But I put that on my actual name badge. And so you go around, you see all these people with .eth on their name, and it's like, cool, but who is that? What am I going to look up? Am I going to go to OpenSea? You know what I mean? Am I going to go to the ENS manager? What am I looking? Right. What does this tell me?
Probably not.
Yeah. Like, what does this tell me? Right. So there has to be something that I can easily look up and just kind of see a profile or something that tells me the story about who this person is. Maybe even contact information. I think we talk about ENS or the .eth being the everything. But if it's really the everything, then it should start to tell me everything. And there's got to be a place I can go easily that tells me everything I need to know. And so I didn't really see any tool for that. And I don't want to have an app. I don't want to download an app and all that stuff. So I said, is there like an easy thing? I just type their name into a browser. There wasn't really anything. So that was the one part of it. The other part of it was there was already two browser-friendly URLs in the ENS ecosystem that kind of accomplished what I was thinking, and that was eth.limo. Are you familiar with eth.limo?
I've seen it, but honestly, I don't know, a ton about it.
Sure. So with ENS, you can create a decentralized, quote unquote, website. And there's limitations on that because if you type in your name.eth into a browser, it doesn't go to anything because .eth is not a working TLD currently. So you'd have to use like Brave browser if you wanted to find someone's actual decentralized website. Now, the average person isn't going to use the Brave browser. They're going to use Safari and Chrome and Firefox. At least that's what I use, right?
Yeah.
So the ENS team at some point created a hack, sort of like an easy way to access the decentralized website. And that was you type in your name.eth into a browser, but then you just add .limo to the end of it. I don't know how they chose .limo. It makes cool. It makes no sense really. And for some people it creates more confusion than necessary. But you end it off by typing in .limo, and that will direct you as a gateway to their decentralized website. So you can access it through Chrome. But the magic behind that happening is that they own eth.limo. That's an actual Web 2 domain. So if you type in yourname.eth.limo, something will come up. And it's because ENS owns, or the ENS team or ecosystem owns eth.limo. So I said, that's kind of cool because a lot of people were using it. Their name.eth.limo. That brings you to their decentralized website. The only problem is not everyone's going to want to make a website, right? A lot of us just have Instagram or Facebook and stuff, and that's our quote unquote website. We don't sit there and create things in HTML and all that stuff. We don't have time for it. We just create profiles and we're done with it. But I thought that whole mechanism of just eth.limo, yourname.eth.limo in a browser, so easy. But not everyone's going to have a decentralized website. But they might have NFTs. They might have filled out their ENS profile. They might have an avatar. They might have things already. If you're involved in crypto, you're going to have stuff, right? So I bought the domain eth.photos. So if you're wondering, how does this even work? Some people think it's magic. There's no magic.
That's what I thought at first. I was like, what is going on here? Where are these photos coming from?
There's no magic. I bought the domain eth.photos, and I just configured it in such a way that you could type in your name.eth.photos into a browser, Chrome, Safari, Firefox, whatever. And then behind the scenes, it's saying, hey, it's 353 the ninja.eth. Actually, this would be a good experiment. Maybe we don't have to do it live, but it would be a good experiment. Type in the ninja.eth.photos into a browser, see what comes up.
I actually did that before we got on the call.
You did?
Yeah.
Okay. Did anything come up for you?
It pulls up everything. Yeah.
It pulls up everything.
Everything NFT wise, obviously.
Everything NFT. Yeah. Not your whole life story, but
right.
Yeah. So what it's doing behind the scenes is it's saying, okay, it's looking at the ninja.eth, right? Because you typed in the ninja.eth.photos, and it's saying, who is that? And it's using several different APIs. It's tapping into, ENS's database to say, who is this? What's the crypto address? The actual long wallet address for this user. And also, do they have a profile set up? What's in their profile? And now that I have your ENS profile, and then I also have your crypto address, I can find out a lot of other stuff about that user too, automatically behind the scenes. It can then, it can use an API to go and see what NFTs you have on OpenSea. So it's using OpenSea's API to see what NFTs you have. It respects your privacy preference. Like if some people want certain ones hidden. So it'll go check out what NFTs you had, show the ones that you want to have shown. And that sort of create a picture of a user that is better than, hey, let me just check you out on OpenSea. Because if you fill out your ENS profile, you might have put some really interesting info there. Like I have my email address in mine. I have a link to a website in mine. I have my Twitter on there. So if someone saw 3531.eth on my badge at a show, and I typed in 3531.eth.photos into their browser real quick, they'd be like, I know his email, I know his Twitter, I know his website, I see his NFTs. You know what I mean? I kind of got a feel for who this person is all of a sudden.
Well, that was the interesting thing to me is like I've never, used it before I looked up, my own ENS into the browser, and it was like, all right, this stuff's already here. You know what I mean? I think it speaks volumes to the potential for this, like what we were talking about earlier with, cross-platform use. Like if you can do it at this simple level, like imagine what can be created, in the future for us. It takes the stress of us having to create profiles out of it. Like everything we have that we want displayed, is out there. And just a great tool, like you're saying, if they're at a conference or, any sort of event, any party, just look it up and you can find out what you need to know about them. And the person who is creating the site can obviously choose what to display as well, which I think is, really important as we kind of move into the Web3 side of things, as far as personal identity, security and privacy. All that stuff is going to be really crucial to growing and creating new projects like this.
Yeah, and just kind of like another reason why I think this concept will take off and why I say cross-platform usernames. Let's say you decide for the next few months, you're going to tell people to look you up on .photos. You know what I mean? The ninja.eth.photos. But eventually you find a cooler a cooler thing, something cooler than dot photos, and you say, I'm not going to give that one anymore. The best part is all the stuff that you have is automatically going to be on the new platform. You don't need to, hey, let me download everything from dot photos, upload it to a new platform, tell people I'm going to use this one now. And, oh, now the timestamps are wrong. Right. It looks like I uploaded everything today. You know what I mean? It's like, it's too exhausting to change, because that's an issue that I've had. I've been on social media for a long time. I was on Facebook going all the way back to 2004 when I first got on Facebook, the year it launched. And so like my whole life is on there, my whole adult life anyway. And the downside to that is Facebook is not as cool as it used to be, right?
Right. Well, Meta might change that. We'll see what happens.
Well, yeah, we'll see what happens. Maybe it's all going to be in the metaverse or something.
Right.
Who knows? But the other downside is, if it's not going to be around forever or cool forever, is that if I wanted to easily change platforms and say, I don't want it to be on Facebook anymore, I want to be on the new thing, I have to somehow get all the stuff that I posted for, how many years has it been? 18 years. And if possible, upload it to some new platform. You know what I mean? I don't know that I could do that. Maybe I think Facebook gives you the opportunity to download your photos, but it's just a jumble of stuff. All the timestamps are gone. I got to download it. I have to re-upload it to something. It's awkward. If Facebook was Web3, then I could just say, I'm just not going to use it, and I'm just going to connect my wallet to whatever the new cool thing is, and all my stuff will be on that new thing, time-stamped and all. It's a disconnect wallet, connect wallet. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, that sounds huge for anybody who considers themselves like a content creator as well. I mean, the ability to just easily shift to any new platform created, like that's just it's not out there. And obviously if you have, a large name, that helps get a following, when you're transitioning from Instagram to TikTok. But even with that, you're still going to kind of lose that to, some of the people who are earlier than you on these new platforms that have kind of taken up the attention space of it. So that sounds, really, really good for anybody looking to create content in the future for this. As far as dot photos goes, was there anybody that kind of helped you in the creation of it? Does this, all stem from your own work? Was anybody assisting in anything as far as the coding side, design side? Who else kind of played a part in it?
So, all the coding is me. Like I said, I'm adequate enough. It could be improved, the way it's engineered, for sure. I did have some help with the design of it a little bit. I did ask someone to improve the CSS that I was using. I'm a bad designer. I'm not good at design. That's where I fail, right?
Right. Maybe good at everything.
So someone did submit their own kind of like design framework, and I implemented most of it. It might look a little bit different today from what they originally submitted to me, but it was helpful from that standpoint. But other than that, it was really kind of all me. I don't have like a partner. I don't have a dev working for me. You know what I mean? It's really just been my own work.
Well, this is kind of a spinoff from, you as a builder side of things, but is there any sort of tools or recommendations you would have for anybody looking to, explore the world of coding? Obviously, you scroll through Twitter and you see people talking about how important that is, for now, but even more so for the coming years. Like, is there anything you would recommend for somebody looking to start, stepping in that world today?
For sure. So I think that you probably aren't going to want to start with something like Solidity, which is for smart contracts. I think that's like 2 steps removed, and you have to learn about a lot of other things before you get to that level where you're going to say, hey, I'm going to code a smart contract. I think people should start with the easy stuff, and that is HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. If you know those 3 things, not only can you make a website and create a layout, but JavaScript is so broad and dynamic that you can also do a lot. You can interact with smart contracts using JavaScript. So you could get data from them or send data to them. So you can do so much Web3 type stuff with JavaScript. And if you learn those three things, you will be on your way to being able to do so much. The way I taught myself how to code was it's old fashioned now, because I guess I'm a little bit older than some other people, but I bought like a For Dummies book, like.
Oh, wow. I haven't seen one of those in quite a while.
Yeah, I don't even know if they still have them anymore. But it was very, very helpful. And I just went through step by step by step. And eventually I got the hang of it. And then there's a lot of other good sites out there where if you get stuck or you have a question or something that never came up, the question has probably already been asked and there's an answer waiting for you online. A really good resource for questions is a website called Stack Overflow, stackoverflow.com. If you search any coding question, you will inevitably find that question has been raised at some point and an engineer has already answered it on Stack Overflow. So, buy a basic guidebook, start messing around, and if you have questions, end up on Stack Overflow and it'll be good. HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. That's what you need to learn.
Well, I personally have no experience in it, but from what I've heard, 90% of it, after you understand it, is copy and pasting from sites like that. I don't know if that's true, but that's kind of what I've seen online, Twitter, Reddit, things like that. So
yeah,
maybe
there's a little truth to that for sure.
Yeah. Well, I do have one thing I forgot to mention earlier. We actually do have one of our contributors, Zach.eth, ZXCH.eth. He actually wrote an article that we're going to be putting out tomorrow that actually explains how to, really simply create one of the .limo sites for yourself. I'm not an expert, like I said, so I don't want to try to explain it. But if you guys listening right now want to check that out and kind of figure out how to basically create your own .limo site, make sure you check the site and find the article from zxch.eth and have the ability to create your own. But yeah, so Sean, I just have one closing question for you, and then we'll kind of wrap things up. If there was any .eth that you could have, what would that be?
So it's actually well known. Well, I don't know how well known it is. I like to think that things I want are well known, but they probably aren't. The one that I would want or wish that I could have. Yes, I want dbank.eth, and it's coming off of expiry actually. So we'll see if I end up getting it. Crossing my fingers, but I know how degens are. They'll probably try to snipe it and then try to sell it to me. It's probably what's going to happen.
I might have to see if I can do that. Let me know what you're willing to pay for it so I can see if I can get in there.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you it's like $2 so that you don't. The one that I would want, so I own Sean3.eth, I own Sean2.eth, I own Sean1.eth, but I don't own Sean.eth.
That's going to be a pricey one.
I know who owns it now. I don't know him personally, but I have located the owner of it. I had tried to initiate some dialogue about it, and it's gotten no reply.
Yeah.
I don't think he wants to give it up. But yeah, if I could have
his name Sean?
It is, yes.
It is. Okay.
Yeah,
well,
so I'm doomed. Yeah, I'm
tough to do.
Yeah, if I offer him $1 million, he's going to say no.
Maybe he needs like a free conference you could host or something. Maybe that would entice him a little bit.
That's my secret plan. That's what I'm going to offer him.
Well, Sean, thank you again for joining us today. I really appreciate it, and best of luck getting your name there.
Thanks a lot, Garrett. Appreciate it.